A lot of people don't know this because something I don't like to talk about, but I was kicked out of the Navy. I did a little over a year. Um, that's actually a funny story. Um, Back when I was in high school, I was a little clueless as to how going to college worked and paying for college, and I was a little narrow minded as to where I wanted to go to school, and thinking that I didn't have enough money to go to the school that I wanted to go to. um, I didn't go. I didn't go to college, and long story short, I didn't have anything to do. So one day I was just at the house doing nothing. I went out to the mailbox to check the mail, and still with the mail in my hand, the recruiter starts talking to me and says, "Hey, you're not doing anything. Why don't you join the Navy?" So I literally went to the recruiter's office with the mail still in my hand and signed up. So I went to boot camp close to Chicago. It's a little north of Chicago in a place called Great Lakes. A lot of people call it Great Mistakes, but I don't think I had ever gone that north um, before that. So I didn't really know what to expect. Quite interesting. Um, I left here March. Weather here in March is pretty warm, pretty hot. So, and as and some things never change because I still don't check the news. So I didn't really check the weather, didn't know what to expect. So I left the way I was dressed here. I was wearing a tank top, shorts, and just that's it. No protection from the elements. And somebody was saying something about it's cold up there, and I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. It's hot. It's March. It's hot. So we left, and the plane lands. We get off the plane. We're walking towards the exit of the airport to get on the shuttle that's there to pick us up to take us to the base. And I see a thermometer outside the building, and it says -10, and I'm thinking to myself, that cannot be right. That cannot be 10 below zero. And the doors opened. There were automated doors. They opened, and the wind blew in along with a little bit of snow, and it was cold. So the entire time we're getting taken to base, and we're getting processed, and it actually took a long time, doing all the paperwork and uniforms and bedrolls and all that. The whole time I just wish I had some clothes because I'm cold. So we were there up until about 2 in the morning getting processed with all the paperwork and all the clothing and uniforms and everything. We finally get to our bunk, and the company commander says, "Get a good night's sleep, ladies. We have a long day ahead of us." And I kid you not, exactly 3 hours later at 5 o'clock in the morning, they come in banging trash cans and trash can lids, waking us up. It scared the shit out of me. One, and they're yelling and screaming for everybody to get out of their bunks and stand at attention and all that. So, one, we got no sleep. Two, it's cold. Three, I'm scared shitless. So that was my first night of boot camp, and let me tell you, boot camp. It's I think everybody should go to through boot camp, at least young men, if for no other reason, just to experience that. And I don't mean these boot camps that are court ordered, where they have to take it easy on you. They can't really touch you and they can't really be mean to you. Our company commanders never laid hands on us, but let me tell you, they were far from being nice. They were not friendly, as far as holding your hand and, oh, let me get to know you as a person, and how do we get through this together. No, it was, rough, it was tough, but they got the job done. They made us into tough, fit individuals that we needed to be. One of the things that I remember was, some people had never seen snow before. So we're marching. We marched everywhere we went. Wherever we were going, if it was a class, if it was to go eat, if it was to go physical training, whatever we were doing, we walked everywhere. So it was not one of these things where we got on the bus and they loaded us all on the bus and we got driven to the mess hall. You know, we all marched by company, one by one, company by company, to the galley. And I remember the first night, the first morning, we're marching on our way to go have breakfast on 3 hours of sleep. And this is how bad my company was. You see snowballs flying throughout our company, and people are just throwing snowballs at each other. So we get there, and there's about two or three companies ahead of us. So we had to wait outside until it was our turn to go eat, because there's not enough room for everybody. So we have to wait until everybody gets out. And this was one of those situations where you only have, I think it was about 15 minutes to eat. From the second that the last person sits down, you have 15 minutes to eat. So that was one of the things that we learned, was to be able to eat really, really fast. And what's funny is that you pretty much got to eat a lot. You didn't get limited to what you had to eat. They didn't tell you, oh, you can only have one egg and one biscuit and one thing of milk. I mean, if you were hungry, you got to eat. I mean, that's what that's why we were there, to get fit. So eating properly was one of the things. I mean, you didn't try to eat a lot because you only had 15 minutes to eat, but they didn't tell you, oh, you could, since you only have 15 minutes, you only have one egg and one piece of fruit, whatever. We ate a lot. I don't know how we did it to eat so much and we didn't come out fat. So, like I said, I was young. I was very, very stupid. So I made mistakes. I made bad choices, and I ended up getting kicked out. The first time, uh, after you go through boot camp, you get sent to school, and with my luck, I my school was there in Great Lakes, so I had to stay there. I mean, you get a few weeks between boot camp and school, but I didn't get to go somewhere else like San Diego or Florida or whatever. I got stuck there. So after boot camp, I went back to Chicago and went to school. But while I was in school, I just decided I wanted to go home. So I went home, And luckily, I didn't stay gone long enough where it was AWOL. I was like 1 day short of being AWOL, so I was just on unauthorized absence. I think they called it. So you can't break the rules and not get punished. So I ended up getting punished. So they put me on restriction. I think it was like 30 days restriction, which pretty much means you can't go anywhere. You don't have the freedom that everybody else does. You know, after school, you're stuck in the dorm. You can't leave. You can't go anywhere except to go eat, and that's it. Um, you go to school, you eat, and you're stuck in the dorm. You can't leave. Like whenever we were, whenever we had liberty after school, we were able to leave and go eat or go whatever. So I was on restriction, and it pretty much sucked because you couldn't go anywhere, and being stuck in a dorm, 19 years old, there's nothing really to do except go crazy. So the people that were on restriction always had to stay as a group and march together to go eat, and whenever we went places like to go to the post office and stuff like that. So I remember one day we were marching, and like I said, we were in Chicago, and it's snowing, and it is cold, and if it rains, of course, the ice that melts turns the snow that melts will turn into ice. So you can imagine how much ice there was on the sidewalk, and it was very challenging trying to walk in non-slippery shoes, I guess you could say, and with that much ice. So long story short, um, I fell on the ice, and the first time and I say the first time because I fell twice. The first time I fell sitting up, and I know a lot of people think that it's funny when you see somebody fall, but when I fell, I felt it felt like somebody had hooked me up to electricity, and electricity went straight up my back. It felt like a shock. I felt like I was getting shocked, and it hurt really, really bad. And the thing was, for some reason, I didn't go or want to go to the doctor. I don't know why. I was like really, really, like I said, I was really dumb, and I made a lot of bad choices, and I think that was one of them, because I should have gone to the doctor and let them know that I fell and hurt myself. But I slowly got up, and um, we went back to the dorm, but every single step that I took hurt. And like I said, with my luck, I lived on the third floor. So every single step hurt. So I had to go up 3 flights of stairs every single day, at least 3 times a day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, going to school. And we didn't have elevators in the dorm. So every time I wanted to go upstairs or downstairs, I had to take the stairs. And sometimes I would stay downstairs just so I wouldn't have to walk 3 flights of stairs to go to the dorm and to go to my room. But one thing for sure is that I met some very interesting people. I made a few friends when I was in there. One guy, and this is how big of an impact he had um, on me, because to this day I still remember him. His name was Esquivel, and this motherfucker was funny as shit. I remember in boot camp, um, he was his bunk was across from mine, so whenever we stood in formation, he was always in front of me. So the company commanders would walk up and down, they inspect you and they talk shit to you, and make sure that everything's okay, and whatever. So one day they're walking up and down, and this motherfucker is making funny faces, and he's standing in front of me. So everybody's bald. This guy's a little chubby, and he's got a stupid look on his face, but he's making a face, and I'm trying really, really hard not to laugh because that would be my ass if I did. So the company commander, and it's funny because this dude was at least 5 foot tall. So he's walking up and down, looking at everybody, talking shit, and he gets right in front of my face. He's, what the fuck is so funny? And I'm trying my best not to laugh, and I'm, holding my smirk, and I'm like, nothing, sir. And he's like, wipe that fucking smile off your face. Okay, so like I said, I left without permission, um, and for some reason, and I don't even remember why I did this, but for some reason I wrote the Navy a letter, and I told them, just to let you guys know, I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm not going back. Take care, peace out, bye. And I honestly don't remember why I wrote that letter. It might have been because at the time I was getting high. I was on coke, and that might have been the reason why. One, I wrote the letter, and two, I didn't want to go back. But I wrote the letter. I wasn't gonna go back, and I was getting high at the time. And I remember one day I had gotten high, and I stayed up all night till about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was just laying down to go to sleep, and the phone rings, and I wasn't about to answer the phone. So my mom walks into the living room because I was sleeping on the couch. My mom walks into the living room. She gives me the phone. She goes, "Here, it's for you," and she just walks away. And um, I answered the phone, and I'm like, "Hello," and it's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go pick you up." And I'm like, "What?" And I sit up right away. So it's the Navy military police telling me that they're gonna come pick me up. And the guy's like, you know, it's better for you to turn yourself in. So are you gonna be there when I go pick you up? And I'm like, I honestly don't know, but you better hurry up before I change my mind. So sure enough, they picked me up in a few minutes, but for some reason I knew that it was gonna be a while before I ate, so I decided to eat something before I left. And I ate a huge bowl of cereal. And back then I used to smoke, so I'm thinking I'm a badass and I'm smoking. And the cops come, and actually SAPD came to the house, and they knock on the door, and I'm like, "Who is it?" "It's the cops. We're here to pick you up." I'm like, "All right, hold on." So I'm putting out the cigarette, and I'm walking to the kitchen to put my bowl in the sink, and they're like, "Open the door, we're here to pick you up." And I hear one of them say, "Go around the back. In case he tries to run for it, or he's gonna try to run for it." And I'm like, "I said, hold on. I'm just putting something away." So I open the door, and sure enough, there's SAPD there, and uh, he tells me he's gonna take me in, and I look to the side of the house, and there's a cop holding the gun, pointing the gun to the back of the house, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Um, so they take me to jail, and I turn around for them to put the handcuffs on me, but he says no. These will go in the front. So he puts the cuffs on me in the front, and takes me to jail. He take me downtown to the police department back when it used to be over there, um, just around the corner from the courthouse. And they're talking to each other, the Navy police and the San Antonio police. They're talking to each other, and the guy's in the car. I'm in the back seat, and he's talking. And then this dude decides to lecture me. Now, like I said, I was doing coke at the time. Was 19 years old. I had this attitude that I didn't give a fuck. I really did. So this guy tries to lecture me about, I don't know why you're trying to run. I don't know what your problem is, what's going on, but you should really think about it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking to myself, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear about it. One, because like I said, I was getting high. Two, I didn't even get a chance to go to sleep. So they take me to jail, they take me downtown to the police department, and I'm in the basement. And I remember sitting there, and all I wanted to do was go to sleep. I didn't even care what they were going to do to me. I didn't even care where they took me. All I cared about was going to sleep. So I'm sitting there, and I had to wait for the military police to come pick me up. And I'm sitting there, and I've fallen asleep on a bench. And, hey, you can't go to sleep. Wake up! And I'm thinking to myself, fuck you. So the harder I tried to stay awake, the more I kept falling asleep. So after a few hours, I'm sitting on a bench. The, the military police finally picked me up, and so of course I can't use the cops' handcuffs, so they have to, you know, trade handcuffs, and they take me into a military police car, and this wasn't the Navy military police. It was Air Force military police. Because if you know anything about San Antonio, we don't have any Navy bases, but we have military bases. So the cops take me, and I forgot to mention that I did pack a bag of mostly underclothes. I think I had left my uniforms on base or something. I don't even remember where my uniforms were at. But I packed a bag of mostly underwear, socks, and t-shirts, and of course my cigarettes. So they take me to Lackland, and if you've ever seen the movie Cadence with Charlie Sheen, he gets put in this kind of like jail house. I say that because it's a small building about the size of a house, but it's a jail for people that, you know, break the rules or whatever, and they get sentenced to this little area. And I was put in a building like that. And it's crazy because it had about 3 levels of security just to get into that little building. So you had to stop at a gate, they ask permission to get in, or they buzz somebody, call somebody, whatever, and they unlock the door. But it's one of those electric locks that they have to open it from inside. So we go past 3 gates, and I'm in the building. But one, I'm not Air Force. Two, I have to wait for the Navy police to come pick me up. And three, they're afraid I'm gonna run again. So they put me in a little room by myself. I don't want to say cell because it wasn't really a cell. It had a metal door, but it was just a bunk, a trunk, and that's it. And so I felt like I was special or something since I was in this room by myself. But I had no phone, no TV, no radio, nothing. And the guy says, you get two options of something that you can read. You get the Bible or the rules. I'm so pissed off. I said, I'll take the freaking rules, man. So he gives me this 1 page rules. The rules are 1 page long, and that's it. And I didn't get to watch TV, listen to the radio, nothing. And I'm standing by the door because it was like the top part of the door was like a fence, and the bottom half was solid. And so I'm leaning on the door trying to look at the TV where the other guys are watching TV, and they tell me, you know, get away from the door, and you can't be watching TV, blah blah blah, whatever. And so if you know anything about the military, it's not like you can do whatever you want. It's almost like jail, but but you can't do whatever you want without permission. So I was never able to like take naps or lay down whenever I wanted to. Even though I wasn't doing anything, I still had to be awake. I don't understand that, but I was never able to fall asleep. So if I fell asleep, they would bang on the door and wake me up. It's like, hey, wake up. But what's cool is I think the coolest part about that was that they fed me really really well. I remember for breakfast, I got like several tacos, and these were like huge tacos too. And I think I got like two coffees and a milk for breakfast. I mean, for lunch, one time I remember getting two hamburgers and two big old things of soda. I don't know if they had ordered too much and they were just giving us that, or if that's how they always fed their prisoners. But it that was the best part about it. And what's funny is that I remember the phone ringing, and for some reason I knew it was for me. And I hear the guy saying, "No, he can't talk to anybody. We can't let him use the phone. Blah blah blah, whatever." So the guy says, "Whenever you get to wherever you're going, call your mom and let her know you're okay." I said, "Fine." The phone rings again, and he says, "Yeah, call your girlfriend too." And so, remember how I said that you had to pass those three gates to get in the building, and you had to get permission to get past every level of security. Well, it was like that inside the building itself. It's weird. I don't know why they do this, but I wasn't about to ask, but they have tape on the floor throughout the building, and every time you get to a red tape, you have to ask permission. Prisoner requests permission to cross the red line. So I had to use the bathroom, so I had to ask permission to use the bathroom. And I remember the first time I asked, it was turn around, get on your knees, cross your legs, put your hands on top of your head. They literally put me in shackles. They shackled my feet and my hands just to use the bathroom. So, three red tapes between me and the bathroom. So, I had to ask permission three times. Prisoner requests permission to cross the red line three times just to get to the bathroom. And of course, I had to have somebody watching me while I was doing number one. What? I had to have somebody watch me while I was peeing. I don't know what was going to happen, but they had to watch me. And I remember the first time that I took a shower, the guy was like, "I'm not going to watch you take a shower. You can do that on your own." But going back to my cell, it was the same thing. Prisoner requests permission to cross the red line until I got back. And so I was there for about 3 days until the Navy came to pick me up. And I kid you not, these guys looked like FBI. They were two white guys with glasses, in suits. And they, long story short, they inventoried all my stuff. For some reason, they let me keep my cigarettes, but they threw away my lighter. And so they put me in handcuffs, took me to the airport, and they flew me to San Diego, which was I was supposed to get stationed in San Diego. So I'm on. I'm going through the airport. Two white guys in suits escorting me through the airport, and they tell me to put my hands under my shirt so that nobody sees the handcuffs. But what would you assume if you saw somebody with their hands inside their shirt, with two white guys in suits escorting him, him being a person of color? So people knew that I was in trouble for some reason. But to be totally honest, I felt like a badass at that very moment because I felt like I was like America's Most Wanted or some shit, like somebody popular, because you can see all the eyes looking at you and people like, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? So we finally get on the plane. We're about to fly to San Diego, and of course, I had to sit in between both white guys. They wouldn't let me have my own, seat or be in the aisle or whatever, or the aisle seat. And we flew to San Diego. And during the flight, back in the day, I don't know if they still do it, but if you were on a 2 hour or longer flight, they would give you a meal. And I don't mean peanuts and a soda. They would give you an actual quote unquote meal. So the stewardess was really cool. She puts the dish, I don't even remember what it was. She puts it on my plate in front of me and she says, I don't know how he's gonna be able to eat with those things on, but that's none of my business. I'm just saying. So the guys are like whispering to each other. Okay, we're gonna let you take them off while you eat, but you're gonna have to put them back on after you're done. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck am I gonna do with free hands? I mean, seriously, we're way up in the sky on a plane. What could I possibly do with my hands uncuffed? So we get to San Diego and they take me to my ship, and I don't remember if it was an LST or an LSD, but I was on a ship. They escorted me to my ship, and they turned me in to the sergeant at arms. And this is where somebody really really fucked up. So what was supposed to happen was, since I was, I guess you could still call me a prisoner, they were supposed to take my ID away, my military ID away, and put me in a jail cell in the ship. The sergeant at arms says, "Fuck that! I'm not spending the entire." Because I think it was on a Friday that I arrived. He says, "I'm not spending my entire weekend watching this guy." He tells me, "Just promise you won't leave again." Seriously, that's what he said. He said, "Promise you won't leave again." So he gives me my ID and says, "Monday you'll talk to the captain." So luckily I didn't have any money to go back home, so I stayed in San Diego. But the long story short, after the long weekend, I go see the captain on Monday, pissed off. I mean, of course. I mean, why would he be happy to see me? I took off. I didn't want to be there, and he's even more pissed off at the sergeant at arms for not putting me somewhere secure like he's supposed to. But I got chastised, I got lectured, and they actually gave me a chance to stay, but I felt like I had ruined my record and reputation so much that I was just like, um, no, it's okay. I'll just go home, with what I have, and just call it a day. I didn't want to stay knowing that I was always going to have that record and reputation of a deserter everywhere I went. And I mean, I regret it to this day, but like I said, I was young. I made a lot of mistakes and a lot of bad choices. And looking back now, I keep kicking myself in the ass every day, and I think to myself that I should have stayed, but you know, it is what it is, and I learned my lesson, I guess you could say. But I have some pretty cool stories of being in the Navy. Being on a ship is quite an experience, and being on a ship, you learn that a ship is a ship and a boat is a boat. A boat is this little thing that one or two, three people get in. A ship is this big vessel. It's not a boat. That's why, even to this day, I cringe every time people say, we're getting on a boat, or we took a cruise on a boat. It's not a boat, it's a ship. And our ship used to go really fast. Our ship was really, really cool because it was the kind of ship that both ends opened up. We could You could put a tank in the ship. Actually, we could house several ships, and there was a part on the deck that would open up so that you could lower stuff into the ship, and like a helicopter could bring us supplies, or a helicopter could actually bring a tank and lower it into the ship. And I remember we had some Marines on there. We had about 3 tanks, uh, and we were doing some practices, some maneuvers, whatever you want to call it. We went out into the ocean. I don't remember how far we went. I think it was about a mile into the ocean, and the Marines would go on these tanks, and they were the kind of tanks that would go in the water onto the beach and back. And that's the exercises that they were doing. They would lower the front of the ship, and the tanks would go out into the water, and they would come back. We did that for about 2 or 3 days, and so that was actually pretty cool. Being on deck while the ship is moving, um, getting to see the dolphins jumping in and out of the water, and you're just standing there on the deck, and the water is splashing and it hits you in the face. It's actually a pretty cool experience. Um, like I said, I was stationed in San Diego. Um, we got to go to Long Beach, but since I was not supposed to have left, and the cops took me there, I was on restriction for about a month. Um, so I didn't get to see Long Beach. Then we went to San Francisco. I didn't get to see San Francisco because I was still on restriction, but I did get to see um, the Golden Gate Bridge, and my one of my claims to fame is that I got to pass under the Golden Gate Bridge. A lot of people talk about how they've been on it, or they walked it, or they want to walk it, or whatever. And I'm like, have you ever been under it? So when we were crossing under, I remember opening one of the hatches and seeing the bridge as we were going under it. And um, where we were stationed, I saw that double decker bridge that goes into Oakland. That was actually pretty cool. When I finally got off restriction, that was even more cool because the guys that I used to work with decided that they wanted to take me to the beach. So we went to the beach, and I remember the first day, and remember, it's been at least a month since I've had anything to drink. Now, yes, granted, I'm 19 years old and I'm not supposed to drink, but I was in the Navy. That's what we do. So, um, we're in San Diego. They take me to the beach, and one of the guys has a bottle of Bacardi, and I'm 19 years old. I don't know what to drink or how to drink, and everybody's trying to figure out what we should buy to mix with this. So we ended up buying Gatorade and Squirt. So we're sitting there on the beach drinking, and I used to be really, really stupid when I would drink. So I'm literally doing shots, just chugging Bacardi and Bacardi and Gatorade, Bacardi and Squirt. We're on the beach. Before you know it, it's like half the day has gone by, and I'm passed out on the beach. I remember waking up and being so hot, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna get in the water to cool off. So I get in the water. I'm buzzing out of my mind. So I get in the water. It is so freaking cold, but the the waves were like really really strong, and they're like knocking me over, and I keep struggling just to stay standing up. And I'm thinking to myself, I need to get the fuck out of the water before I ended up drowning. So I ended up going back to the beach, and we're just sitting there, just still, hanging out and drinking. And before you know it, it gets to be nighttime. And one of the white guys that was with us was more nastier than me, because he ends up uh, chasing somebody, and we see him running around chasing somebody, and we're like, holy shit. And so we start going after him, seeing what's going on. Apparently some guy was either looking at him in the bathroom or made a pass at him in the bathroom, so he was chasing this guy, trying to kick his ass. So of course we go and try to keep him from doing something that he's gonna end up regretting, or that's gonna get him in trouble. um, but yeah, we used to drink like fish. You know how they always have that joke, do you drink like a fish? Well, I remember when I was still in school over there in Chicago. In Chicago, we were underage, so we weren't able to drink legally. So what we would do is we would all pitch in to get a room somewhere, and then we would get somebody that was over 21, or whatever the age was back then. I think it was 21, and somebody would buy a bunch of booze for us. So we all pitched in, got a room, and there was one guy that was over 21, and he was already an adult, and he bought us all the booze. And you know white guys are buying Budweiser, and the brother was, I forgot what he was drinking. I don't remember if it was Schlitz or something like that. He was drinking malt liquor, and of course I had to have Mexican beer. I'm just like, buy me whatever Mexican beer they have. Like I said, I was 19. I wasn't a drinker back then. So one of the times that we were drinking, um, there was this one guy, Cartwright. I still remember his name, Cartwright. Um, for some reason, he didn't like me. He was like wannabe racist, and I say wannabe racist because he didn't like me, and he acted very racist. But we still hung out together. We still drunk together. We still drank together and got drunk together. So all through school, we were always talking shit to each other. He would, make racial slurs, and I would tell him shit back. He would tell me, "Go back to where you came from," and I'm like, "You go back to where you came from. If I'm a wetback, then yeah, I crossed a river. You crossed an ocean. You take your ass back." So we would always talk shit. We would always talk shit. And one fateful day, everybody's drunk, and everybody's, what happens when you get a bunch of drunk young guys in the same room? We got bored. So I'm telling Brown. Brown was the brother. The brother was from the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas Virgin Islands. Brown. He said that his nickname was Mad Dog. So I'll call him Mad Dog. So I'm telling him, you know what, dude? This motherfucker is pissing me off. I think I should kick his ass. And he says, yeah, you should kick his ass. So we start talking shit to each other, me and Cartwright. What's up, man? What's up? What's up? When you know how it is when both people, both persons are scared to fight. You don't know how to fight, and you can tell you don't know how to fight because we're both telling each other to throw the first punch, and both of us are afraid to throw the first punch. So I think what happened was he pushed me really hard, so I came back and punched him. Or he pushed me and I pushed him back, and then he punched me and I got pissed off, so I punched him, and I think I was so mad that I punched him so hard that he fell. And when he fell, I started kicking him because he wouldn't get up. And I went down to where he was at, and like a pendejo, I punched him in the back of the head because that was the only part of him that was exposed. And I jumped up and I started kicking him, and everybody starts panicking. It's like, oh my god, you think we should stop it? So at that moment, I decided that I should stop it. So I stopped it, and uh, I walked out. I think I walked out of the room, because you know how it is when you're fighting, you're angry, and I walked out and was walking around and all just like and all this and that, and I don't remember what me and Brown were talking about. It was like, I think I told him, it was like, I fucking hurt my hand, man, because I hit him in the back of the head. It's like, why'd you hit him in the back of the head, man? Because he wouldn't hit me back, and he wouldn't let me punch him in the face. And so a few minutes later, we go back into the room, and everybody is around Cartwright, and they got him there laying down on the bed, and they got ice on his face because um, apparently I fucked him up. I looked at his face, and his nose was like really swollen. He had a cut across the bridge of his nose, and he was bleeding. And it's funny because when I saw him, I felt really bad. I was like, holy shit, I fucked this dude up. And I felt so bad for him. And I was like, dude, I don't even know why we're fighting, man, but I'm sorry. And we apologized and shook hands, and that was that. And it didn't stop the name calling though. We still kept at each other, and sure enough, a few weeks later, it couldn't have been months because we were only in school for like 6 months, I think. So a few weeks later, we're in school, and he starts with the racist shit again, and we start talking shit to each other. But this time, we're in class, and the instructor had left the room for a few minutes, and he starts talking shit to me, man. And so we get up, and we're in fighting stance, and one thing led to another, and we threw a couple of swings, and I went at him, and he turned his face to the wall, and he wouldn't turn around, and I'm trying to punch him like out of the corner of his face because he's hiding his face against the wall, and I can't punch him, and I can't get to him. And so I get mad, and I put him in a full Nelson, and I'm screaming at you, I'm gonna break your neck, I'm gonna break your neck. And right at that moment, the instructor walks back into the room, and holy shit, what the hell is going on here? You two get outside and stand by the door. So he goes and calls, I don't think it was the captain, I think it was just like the main guy at the school. Not the whole base, just the school. And so we got reprimanded, and we didn't get written up because I think the instructor told him that we had always been at each other, and we kept fucking with each other the whole time. So the guy tells us to just cool it, and he won't write us up. So they made us shake hands and promise to be cool for the rest of the school session, and to just be cool. So like I said, we used to get drunk and rent hotel rooms all the time. And I remember this one guy, Patrick. He was this big, freaking white dude. This guy looked like a linebacker. He was huge, and he used to like to drink. It was always me, Galvan, and Patrick. We used to always get drunk and high. We. I don't know how the coke thing started, but you know how it is when you when you find somebody that does the same thing you do, you always want to get high with that person. So on the weekends, me, Galvan, and Patrick would always get drunk and high together. And I remember one time that we had gone to this hotel party. So me and Galvan had gotten a room. I don't remember if Patrick was with us, but I know he was drinking with us. And we were drinking, we're walking around, and Patrick is high as fuck, man. He's like so coked out, right? And there's this kid walking around. And he's like, I don't know where my room is. Hey, bro, you know where my room is? Like, so how the fuck are we supposed to know what room you're in? You should know what room you're in. It's like, and Patrick starts getting pissed off. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You should know where the hell you're at. You're gonna get in trouble. Not just that, you're gonna get all of us in trouble walking around like an idiot, lost, and the cops are gonna find you and kick. You know, they're gonna fuck us all up. So Patrick starts wanting to kick his ass, and we're like, dude. So Galvan was smaller than me, so me and Galvan are trying to stop Patrick from beating this poor guy up. So we had to we ended up having to get him to calm down. So we're jumping from room to room because it was our thing. That's what we all did. We all rented rooms and got drunk. So we're going from room to room. Everybody's got different beer, different liquors. We're getting fucked up, and we ended up going back to our room. Me and Galvan and Patrick were in one of the rooms, and we're sitting there, and somebody knocks on the door, and somebody opened the door, and one of the homies walks in, and he's got this huge, I think it's like a gallon size of Jose Cuervo tequila, and he slams it on the table. He says, "You're Mexican. You have to do a shot." So, of course, I'm Mexican, so I have to do a shot. Like I said, I'm 19. I'm not a drinker. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. We just know that stuff gets you fucked up. So he gives me so much liquor in a cup, right? It was probably like a triple shot, not even a double shot. It was probably like a triple shot, and of course I chugged it because that's what you do. You gotta do the macho thing, you know. So I did a shot, and um, I don't think that was how I ended up getting wasted that night. I just remembered that somewhere throughout the night, in one of the hotel parties, um, somebody had a bottle of Strawberry Hill, Boone Strawberry Hill, and they said, "I dare you to chug that." Well, you know how it is when you're 19, you're in the military. Nobody dares you to do shit because you will do it. So I literally chugged the whole fucking bottle, non-stop, because that was my thing. I always won chug-a-lug contests. Nobody could ever beat me in a chug-a-lug contest. For years, nobody could beat me in a chug-a-lug contest. So I literally chugged the whole bottle. And to be honest with you, that's the last thing I remember. The next thing I remember is I woke up on the floor of somebody else's room, and my face and my hair and my clothes are full of vomit. And I wake up like, what the fuck? And I wake up and there's a bunch of people in the room, and they're like, "Hey, bro, are you okay?" I'm like, "What the fuck happened? Whose vomit is this?" They're like, "That's yours, bro." I'm like, "What do you mean that's yours? What do you mean it's mine?" "Well, yeah, you fell asleep and you started throwing up, and we couldn't get you to go to the bathroom, so you just threw up right there where you're at, and that's where you fell asleep." And I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Y'all didn't try to like help me and everything. Like, we tried, but you wouldn't let nobody help you, and so you just passed up right there." And the dude tells me, "Yeah, you were like all wallowing in that shit. That's why it was all over my face." So I'm pissed off. I get up and I go back to the room so that I can get washed up. So I didn't have a key. I didn't have a key to my own hotel room. But Galvan was in the room, so I'm like, "Okay, cool, Galvan's in the room." And I look into the curtain was a little bit open, so I can see that Galvan's in there. He's almost in the same position that I was at. He's laid out, sprawled on the floor, passed out, face down as well. And I start knocking on the door, banging on the door. Nothing. For it seemed like hours. For a very long time, I'm knocking and banging on the door. He doesn't wake up. So we called the room, called the room, called the room. Nothing. He doesn't wake up for a very long time. He doesn't wake up. When he finally wakes up, dude, what the fuck happened to you? Whatever. So that was when I decided to go home, and uh, didn't have a lot of money, but I had enough money to take the bus home. So I decided to take the Greyhound back home to San Antonio, and I get on the Greyhound, and the whole time it took 24 hours to get from Chicago to Abilene. That's as far as I could get on the money that I had. So I get to Abilene, but the whole time that I'm there, I had really bad dry heaves, and I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink anything. That whole thing about Sprite, not even that. I would drink Sprite and I would throw it back up. And finally, after a few hours, almost a whole day, I was able to eat some, and I always will never forget this. I was able to eat some salty McDonald's fries. That was the only thing that I could keep down. Not the burger, not the drink, nothing else but the fries. And so I get to Abilene, and I go hang out with my cousin Nick. And um, Nick was still in high school at the time, and Nick was necio because Nick didn't like school. He didn't like going to school. And I remember, um, I don't know how long I had been there, but right after I had gotten there, um, spend the night, and my aunt comes in. She's knocking on the door. Nick, get up, go to school. He's like, yeah, whatever. Nick, wake up and go to school. He says, okay, I'll go right now. And Necio Nick doesn't want to get up to go to school. So my aunt Norma calls the truant officer on Nick. I thought this was so funny, because sure enough, a few minutes later, there's a big old black cop um, comes in the room. Yo, Nick, get up. And I'm on the run from the Navy. So I'm scared, right? I think that he's there for me. So he says, how old are you? I said, 19. He goes, go back to sleep. So I turned around and laid back down. And he tells Nick to get up and get dressed for school because he's going to take him to school. He said, I'm going to take you to school personally. So he literally took Nick to school, escorted him to his first class and everything. And this is how crazy Nick was. Nick asks the truant officer, can I take a shower first? So yeah, that's what we would do. We would drink, and we would rent hotels, get drunk, and until we got to San Diego. Because if you know anything about San Diego, San Diego's border town is Tijuana, and that is a very fun experience. Tijuana is a lot of fun, and let me tell you, if you go, it was weird because when you get to Tijuana, it's almost like two sides of the town. There's a side where the Mexicanos go and party, and there's a side where the tourists go and party. And we always went to the tourist side. And sometimes, I would go when nobody else wanted to go. So I wasn't about to. I did what you were not supposed to do. I would still go by myself, even though you're not supposed to. That whole thing about staying in groups, it's a really, really smart advice that they tell you. But I would still go, and I would get necio and be like, I don't want to go to the tourist side. I want to go to the Mexicano side. So I would go to the side where the Mexicanos would go hang out. I remember one of the first times that I went to the Mexicano side that I discovered that thing where you buy the girl a beer and she gets a percentage of the beer, of the money, and I didn't know that. So I met this one lady, and I say lady because I was 19 and she was at least 30s 40s, And she was really nice. She had a nice figure, really pretty face, and she said she wants to sit with me, and she's like, would you buy me a beer? And I'm like, sure. She ordered this really really small beer that was really really expensive. And I'm like, what the fuck? Wouldn't you rather have one of my beers? They're not that expensive. And she explained. She was actually nice enough to explain to me that it was something like $3, and she got one of the dollars, and the bar kept two. That's how they made money. So because it was set up like that, I was willing to help her make a few bucks. But I went to a few different bars, and I went into this one bar that seemed pretty innocent. um, I went up to the bar, and I sat down and talked, and I sat next to this very, very sexy lady, and I don't remember what her name was. Let's say it's something like Lydia, right? For the sake of the story. So I sit down next to Lydia, and of course she orders one of those beers, and we're talking, and I really wasn't paying attention to the women that were dancing on stage. There was like a dance floor, but it was one of those dance floors that lit up, you know, kind of like in remember Saturday Night Fever where he's dancing on that stage and it lights up. It was kind of like that, where one square would light up at a time, or the whole floor would light up at a time. I don't know how they do it, but anyway, I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on. I was just trying to talk to this woman. Like I said, I was 19, and she says, "I'll be right back. I'm going to the bathroom." And she leaves, and I hear the DJ say, "Next, coming up on stage is Lydia." And I'm like, that sounds like the girl's name that I was talking to. And sure enough, she comes out and starts dancing on the dance floor. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is cool. And she dances one song. And then they start another song. Well, Lydia goes upon herself, takes it upon herself to take off her dress. So she's dancing in her underwear. And I'm like, all right, go Lydia. Yeah, I like this place. So by the third song, Lydia is completely naked. I'm like, yeah, I definitely like this place. I honestly did not know it was that kind of place when I walked in, but I sure as hell knew it was that kind of place when I left. And I had fun. I had fun in Tijuana. We went to the clubs a lot, and I went to the Mexican side a lot. And then I was in San Diego for about 3 months until it was finally time for me to go home. And the chief asked me, are you sure you want to, get out? If you want to stay, I'll talk to the captain, and I'll see what I can do. And I'm like, you know, to be honest with you, I'm always gonna have that jacket, and I really don't want it. I don't want to have that reputation everywhere I go. So he says fine. So they process me out, but what's part of the process is you have to go to this separation physical, and part of the separation physical is a psychological evaluation. They just want to make sure that you're okay and you're deemed competent to be out in society. I guess if I was crazy, they wouldn't have let me just go out in society, because who knows what the fuck I could do, right? So I had to go to this other ship, which was, down the pier, whatever you call it. It was docked a few ships away, but it was cool because I never really walked around the ship area and saw the other ships. I would always just go to our ship and just go straight to our ship and leave. So I'm walking around the ship, and I got to see the really cool ships. I saw this aircraft carrier. That motherfucker was huge. So I go to this one ship where I go to see the doctor and get psychologically evaluated. And they ask you, basic questions. What's your name? Um, do you know where you're at? I'm like, yes, of course. I'm on this ship in San Diego. What date? What date is it? And I remember I had to look at the calendar and tell him the date. And this was about 1993, May of 1993. And he's just asking, simple questions, where are you? What date is it? And stuff like that. And he says, do you know who the president is? And I tell him, yeah, it's George Clinton. He says, well, you're close. It's Bill Clinton, but I'm pretty sure George would have made a good president too. And so that was my separation physical, and that was the end of my military service, which is why I never claim military status or veteran status, because I'm a little bit ashamed of having gotten kicked out. If I had gotten honorably discharged, I probably would claim veteran status, at least publicly.